Hey, thanks so much for finding the video. Do us a favor. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe. And be sure to leave your comment. We love to interact. Enjoy the video. Karen, you know this vibe down here. There's a lot of anxiety right now from Saints fans about having to face Brady for the third time and the Bucs for the third time. What's the general mood there in Tampa about this game, having to face New Orleans a third time?
I think it's a little bit excitement, but a little bit of dose of reality of understanding what happened in the first two games this season and the history of the Saints versus the Bucs, and that the Saints have had their number and the Bucs are the underdog here. Even though they have Tom Brady, it's still that mentality of like the big brother, little brother type of thing in the NFC South. You know, there's an excitement about the playoffs, but I think there's a reality of playing in the Superdome against the Saints, especially after the second meeting was a 35-point loss. I mean, that's Bucs fans would probably like to forget it, but they still remember.
Karen, how different? I know we talked like from week 1 to week 9, how different they were, but what about like week 9 to now? How different is the Bucs team than the one that lost on that Sunday night?
Incredibly different, and especially when you talk about the offense in particular. This Bucs offense has taken incredible strides since week 9 and really since the bye week. Since their bye week, and that's been the thing that we've all pinpointed as the turning point for the Bucs. They sort of looked at everything they had, took some time to see how their offense was doing and fix some things, really. And when you look at all of the new pieces for Brady to come in with a new offense, you add Leonard, you add Rob, you add a ton of new pieces to this offense without having an off season. They're really coming together and reaching that potential that everybody hoped they'd have in the beginning of the season. But we're talking 2 months, Matt, 2 months since their last meeting. And the Bucs have been playing very well on offense and scoring 40 or more points in several games. They have 4 games this season where they've scored 40 or more points, 9 games where they've scored 30 or more points. So it's coming together for sure.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the week 9 game, I think that was the first time the Bucs had Antonio Brown. How much more has he gotten involved, and how much more has he affected this offense?
Yeah, I think he's up to speed for sure in the playbook. There was no question about his physical ability or even being in shape. I mean, Gronk said since day one he came, and after being off for a year and change, he came in ready to roll. He said he had a spring in his step, and he said he's just like a machine out there. So that was all up to speed, and then it was just a matter of finding his place in the offense, understanding his role, and then, with matchups and everything. So he's been an incredible weapon for the Bucs to have. He's had 5 touchdowns in the last 4 games, 315 yards receiving, and he's been targeted 30 times. He has 22 catches in these last 4 games.
That's maybe even more important considering the lack of success that Mike Evans has had in his career against Marshawn Lattimore.
Listen, that's the matchup.
I was going to say, it's like 2-part question. Number 1, why, from your standpoint or when you talk to people around the Bucs, why has Lattimore had so much success, and what might be different this go-around for Evans?
That is a great question, and I don't think I can tell you why Marshawn has had the edge, but he has, and that's something that everybody has noticed, But that could be a motivating factor for Mike Evans. That, this time when the stakes are the highest, the Bucs are finally in the playoffs, this game means the most maybe of any in his career, then maybe he gets the edge this time. But also understand, I'm not making excuses for him, but Mike Evans is not at 100%. Let's be clear. He played probably, I think Aaron's was saying he was probably at 80%, and he's been banged up all year. So we'll see how that matchup shakes out. But then you wonder about the X factor of like C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So if Marshawn is having his way with Mike, and then C.J. gets in there chirping, and then who knows how that could all unfold.
I'll ask you, what do you think that Chauncey tells these adult men that causes them to lose their minds?
I have no idea, but it is like, it's a phenomenon. And it's like, it's without fail, every single game, every single opponent. And it's fascinating to watch because you really do wonder what in the world he is saying that gets under these guys' skin so much. Or maybe it's just the amount of it, that it's just like incessant, like
maybe
all the time.
Did you hear Matt Nagy? Matt Nagy after the game Sunday said we spent time Wednesday showing our guys film of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Like, do not take the bait. Like, they spent time in practice, and they still had a guy ejected from the game for punching him. Like, his own teammate punched him in practice. I don't know what he says. I have no idea, but I would pay money to have some feed, like a field audio feed of just whatever he's saying.
Can we get him mic'd up?
Yes.
Who do we have to call to get him mic'd up?
NFL Films. NFL Films. Let me know what it's saying.
That's what I'm saying.
A couple more minutes with Karen Loftus. She's on Twitter at WFLA Karen. You'll give her a follow for Bucs news, especially this week. The flip the field. In the first two meetings, the Saints pass rush had their way against that Bucs offensive line, and we all know that's the way you affect Tom Brady, right? Just get him off his spot. Have the Bucs made strides there from week 9 to now?
I would say yes, but then they just took a big step back with Alex Kappa, their right guard. He's out with a fractured ankle. So anytime you have a shakeup in the offensive line, I mean, we know that offensive linemen are used to being shuffled around. You sort of have to be able to adapt, but that's big. So Aaron Stinney's going in for him. So he's the one who's going to be playing at right guard. So you wonder how that's going to come together, if the Saints are going to pick on him because he's the new one on the offensive line. And the other thing I'm worried about or looking for, rather, is Trey Hendrickson. Is he back? Because he's a menace. I don't think people give him enough credit. Maybe they do this year, but not in years past when he's been equally as tough.
He had great success against Donovan Smith in the first two meetings. His status certainly is gigantic for this week and for this Saints defense. Last thing for you, is there some kind of like X factor, something else in the game? I mean, I know the storylines we're talking about here. What about there, which seems to be maybe a talking point that's dominating the storylines this week?
There's two things, and I'll touch on the first one briefly and get into the second one. I think one of the big factors is whether Ronald Jones is going to go this week. He had the quad injury that kept him out of the Washington game, and he's an incredible threat out there. Obviously, we saw Leonard Fournette step up, and he's a great back to have if Rojo can't go. But the other thing is turnovers. And it might sound kind of simple, but especially with this matchup, Tom Brady has 12 interceptions this season. 5 of them have been against the Saints. And that is something that absolutely needs to be cleaned up. You have a totally different game if you're not throwing 5 picks in those 2 games, and the Bucs are just do so much better when they don't have turnovers. The Bucs are 9-1 when Brady doesn't throw an interception.
That's a good number. That's obviously the Saints have been able to do that. They've been able to force Brady into mistakes. As you mentioned, the 5 interceptions in the first 2 games. So round 3, Saints and Bucs, Sunday in the Dome. Karen Loftus, WFLA Karen on Twitter, at WFLA Karen, WFLA Television, formerly of WGNO. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.